Wisp Sports Radio, the voice of women in sport.
Hey y'all, it's full time with yours truly, Katie Stengel. Sorry having no guest this week, but you get to hear my obnoxious voice talk about the World Cup and some of the harder hitting topics that might have riled up some of the social media this past week. Speaking of, did anybody catch the U.S. team? If anyone lives under a rock and weren't part of the about 500 million people who watched, the U.S. kind of stomped down on Thailand 13-0. To which Twitter took off. Instagram had countless posts of goal after goal after goal. And then there were some critics out there who decided to complain about all the celebrations. So to which I say, I would love to see anybody else score a World Cup goal and try not to celebrate. You let me know what it feels like when you score one in front of that many fans and about 500 million people watching at home. I think 13-0, if anyone did live under a rock and didn't catch the game, is a pretty impressive showing. They're ready to take on Alabama coming up soon. That might actually give them a run. All jokes aside, 13-0, pretty impressive. A few girls got, first goals ever. Mal Pugh in her first World Cup ever. Several girls had, double goals. Go on Sam Ewis for, donating countless dollars to Playing for Pride this month. And I think it was really impressive. I think, anyone can complain and critique how they celebrated or wonder why they had to keep scoring when clearly they were going to win. But this is the U.S., and they train their entire lives to actually have this opportunity to play in the World Cup. So who are we to say they should, take their foot off the accelerator? We need to continue scoring. We need to get on the score sheet. And, this is the World Cup. People come to compete, and I think it would have been more disrespectful to Thailand had they laid off or taken it easy. I think it showed a lot of, hard work and how superior the U.S. really is to some of these smaller countries. But, I do think Thailand continued to fight for 90 minutes, and unfortunate that they, came across such a strong powerhouse. So kudos to the U.S. They crushed it. Everybody at home loved it. Social media went crazy with goal after goal. Alex Morgan decided to score 5 on her own, which was, awfully impressive. You know what? The girl has worked so hard to get where she is, and if she's going to put away 5 goals, that's great. Go on and win the Golden Boot. I do remember during the game, I was kind of pissed off about VAR. I think there were about 2 calls that probably could have been PKs or at least checked. And I think VAR has been a hard-hitting topic this World Cup with several calls that have, gone back, been reviewed, led to PKs, which changed an entire game. I remember watching the Scotland-England game, and handball was called. And although based on today's definition of a handball, I do agree with the ref. I think it was awfully harsh, and it absolutely changed all momentum Scotland had. So VAR, I can't say that I'm a fan. I think any type of goal, yeah, you go back, you check it, make sure it was actually legitimate. But when there's a small thing that happens and everyone's complaining now, we have to stop play and go back and refs review and catch things that they might have missed, like that takes away from the, authenticity of the game. And whatever, don't agree with me or not, but I think VAR could go away. I think we were just fine without it. And while we can review goal line technology type things and really make sure a goal is a legitimate goal, I think the handball thing has got to be reviewed. I think not with VAR. It needs to be the definition of a handball. I think could be changed a little bit, because I'm sorry, but no defender can go up to you in an unnatural position with their hands behind her back in order to prevent a handball. That is just ridiculous. When do they ever teach kids to run around with their arms behind their back? Try to run like that, please, and tell me how normal it feels. Much less you look a little odd. So I think it's been tough on defenders because they really have to really watch what they're doing. They really have to go in and, I don't know, some of their defending techniques get taken away by such severe calls because a handball is anything that hits your arm in an unnatural position or they gain an advantage from. So I'm sorry, if you're going in for a tackle and your arm happens to fly up, I honestly think that should be changed a little bit, and I think we should be a little more lenient on that because that's part of the game. But as we've seen, VAR has made some significant calls lately in the France game. They ended up getting a game-winning PK because of it, and it's just harsh. It's tough, and people work their whole lives, like we said earlier. Like you work your whole life to play in this World Cup and compete, and for a tough call like that to determine your fate and maybe the future of your team getting out of the group, that's kind of sad. But that's the World Cup. Anything happens, and you know VAR is here to stay for this tournament, so we'll see how it goes the rest of the way. I also think huge shout out to some of the unheard of teams. Like I said a few weeks ago, be ready to watch out for these teams like, Chile, New Zealand, Jamaica. Yeah, they might not have gotten the results in their past games, but they're here to compete, and this is the World Cup, and I think people step up in this opportunity, and they've been playing well. And I think New Zealand was very unfortunate to walk away with that loss in the game because they were great defensively, and they really put up a fight against Holland, and unfortunate. But I think, some of these teams are proving that the playing field is getting leveled. And if you look at Japan, like, they struggled against Argentina. Steffi Bonini was an absolute phenom and killed it. And Argentina got their first, World Cup point ever, which is huge. So some of these smaller teams are still out here competing and proving how close this competition really is. I mean, Canada only defeating Cameroon by 1. England having a pretty close result against first-timer Scotland, and Germany struggling in their first 2 games and hardly winning 1-0. Hey, they got the win. They got, 6 points, but it wasn't the cleanest, and it was definitely tough for them, whereas people might have, suggested a bigger scoreline. So I think another thing to look out for is, some of the late goals. There's been a lot of last-minute theatrics, and, everyone always says, growing up, the first and last 5 minutes of a half are crucial, but, man, have you seen it in this World Cup? And it's pretty easy to slip up and, take 1 second where you, aren't totally focused, and then, Sweden get a late win. Holland had a late goal. Italy, with that heroic header against Australia in stoppage time, that's pretty impressive. And I think teams need to be, play for the full 90-plus minutes. Otherwise, there'll be these random results. So I think that's also another reason why it's impressive to see some of these lesser-known teams compete in this World Cup and step up and play. And I think, there's been several first-timers getting their first goals, like Mal Pugh, and I'm sure that won't be her last. First World Cups for Scotland, South Africa, Italy for the first time in like 20 years. And, Spain just got their first World Cup win recently. Argentina, like I said earlier, their first World Cup point. This World Cup is going to be very interesting, and I still stand by US, Canada, Netherlands, and France being, top contenders. But let's see how it plans out. Let's see Argentina. That was incredible. I was so impressed watching Steffi and the fight and how she brought her team behind her and really produced like this great product where I think a lot of teams were not expecting that out of such a notoriously men's dominant side. But, women are out here competing as well, and I think it's incredible for the women's game, and it shows how much it's growing. I think Australia, everyone knows Sam Kerr, and everyone is very familiar with many of the Matildas through their NWSL careers. But I think, we saw their back line get exposed there, and I really hope they improve that organization moving forward and can perform up to these high standards people have set for them. But I don't want to count out these, like, lesser-known teams. Like, I'm sure I'm very biased because my best friend plays for Holland with Viviana Miedema, but the way they combine up top and the way they look to play with each other and come with 3 different attacking threats is incredible. So I think as teams get into this World Cup a little more and start to combine and play with each other with more confidence, and it just gets sharper and sharper, I think it'll be very, very tough to break down this type of team. And I think they're going to surprise some people because they're not, aware of how great they really are on paper. But I think there's been incredible amount of extra coverage this year. And obviously with social media, it's been amazing because there's been so many different news outlets providing coverage of all different teams. I've seen even Thailand, which notably, as we saw yesterday, isn't one of like the powerhouses, but they're still getting covered and people are still looking at their team and what strengths they have and what they bring to this World Cup. So I think it's really impressive with especially having the NBA Finals and the Stanley Cup going on concurrently. Like, there are still so many news channels covering these games. I know my local station has talked about our Utah Royals girls who are all making us proud over there, but there are so many local channels and big news stations that are covering these stories, and everyone's getting in on it. And I think it's amazing for the women's game, and I hope it comes back. And in all these local competitions like the NWSL, fans ride around everybody and really want to see even more of these incredible players perform, because the World Cup is, the greatest thing that any soccer player could ever strive to play in. And the girls are so, I don't want to say lucky because they've earned this time and they've earned this opportunity, but they're so incredibly blessed to be able to have a chance to compete on the world stage like this. And I am so proud of all of these players. So I hope that when they come back, it'll be just even greater soccer, and we're just going to continue to grow the game. And you can see that fans are tuning in daily, and I think there's been so much more fan interaction because they see all these first-time players or all these different types of countries. Like when I think it was Nigeria came into the locker room with all their dancing, and it was incredible to see. Those jerseys also amazing. And I think it's so cool that there's all these different cultures all surrounding this tournament coming together and still playing this game that we love. And I think especially during Pride Month, it's incredible to see that people put their differences aside and can still play this game and enjoy the beauty of this game of soccer. So I am enjoying this month a lot. I know I just said enjoy about 15 times, but it's cool to, you wake up, you watch a soccer game at the crack of dawn, thanks to these terrible time changes. Then go out and train, come back, watch another game. Everyone's analyzing the games. Everyone has their own little comments and critiques, but, we're on the couch and they're there. So it's amazing to see these players get this opportunity to compete, and we all get, the opportunity to watch them. And so many different types of players, so many different types of styles of play. And it's just been an incredible month. I think we just got started, and it's going to be fun to see at the very end who, takes home this trophy. But until then, even these like smaller group games that people want to write off, like these are big moments for these countries. And I think it's so fun to see the backstories and all the, publicity around just a simple game of soccer and how these players are living out their dreams and getting this chance to compete against each other. So if you have been living under a rock, please tune in. I believe it's on Fox Sports, Fox. Check out your local stations. ESPN, I'm sure, has coverage. There's been tons of highlights already. Check out some of these goals. Check out some of these incredible athletes, and tune in and watch as this month picks up, because second round has just started and we have 3 games in the group stage, and then it gets real dicey with who goes through, and there'll be plenty of teams making it through the knockout stage, and then it's do or die, and I cannot wait for that. So as a team with Utah Royals, we've all picked in a hat a team that we get to root for, and if you win the cumulative pot. So I am personally cheering for China. Please pull through. Didn't have the greatest showing the first game, but I have faith that we're gonna be the underdog and pull out a victory so I can win about $20 and buy myself a coffee. So, everyone, pick a team, pick a player, learn from them, enjoy the game, and be sure to tune in because there's about 3 games a day nowadays. So, I just want to thank you guys for tuning in. Sorry I didn't have any guests with me. Next time, please let me know if you'd like to hear from a specific person, and I will try to hound them and get them on the show.
Full Time, the soccer show with Katie Stengel, only on Wisp Sports.
Catch me at KStang12 on Instagram and Twitter for useless banter. Tune in to Full Time next week as I hopefully can get a day in the life with some of the World Cup stars over in France. And tune into Wisp Sports because they cover all types of women's soccer and plenty other sports that I am biased, but soccer may be the greatest. Thanks for listening to me chat, and I will catch you guys next time.